you're probably going to want to take on a Pale Horse to move your mount speed faster. Leechborn is a PvP talent at the end of the day. You're going to stop being feared, sleeped, 2-minute cooldown. It's a PvP talent, guys. Nothing in PvE at the moment warrants that talent. What do we take as PvE heroes? At level 85, we're not leveling anymore. We don't need mount speed buffs. We're taking Endless Winter. What does it do? Very simply, for 2 points, it makes our interrupts, our mind freeze, completely free. And what did we say in our rogue guide? We said, if we're interrupting, we are adding to the group in all ways. Now we have interrupts that are free. It's not even costing us anything. It's not a DPS loss to interrupt for a Frost DK. There is no DPS loss whatsoever in interrupting for a Frost Deathknight. Absolutely fantastic. So we will now volunteer in the raid or in dungeon. I'll interrupt it. You know why? Because it doesn't lose me DPS, and that makes me a total baller, is I'm doing 2 jobs at once while you guys are struggling. And what you'll find in early raids, if the boss needs interrupting, if you're doing some very normal, that's been nerfed now, so you can pug it, tier 11 runs, you'll come to bosses like Maloriak, and so on, Omnitron Defense System. A lot of bosses in tier 11 need interrupting, Nefarian needs interrupting, and so on. What we can now do is take on those tasks without losing any damage, and we can say to our poor rogue friends, we'd laugh in their faces, who need to save resources and have a DPS loss to interrupt, did you know my interrupts is free? That's right, it's free. Eat that. We can do it for free, carrying on our DPS. We don't need to watch our runic power like Unholy Deathknights do and Blood Deathknights. We don't need to do any of that. We can just DPS away mindlessly, and then as soon as we see that spell cast in a heroic dungeon or a heroic raid, anywhere that needs interrupting, we can just fire that bad boy off and laugh all the way to the bank and then do it again in a few seconds' time. Happy days. Merciless Combat. This is our execute talent. When the boss goes less than 35% health, all our abilities are going to start smashing that boss by another 12%. Free damage boost when the boss is below 35% health. Who's not going to take that? Not me. I'm taking it because it's win. Chill of the Grave. Your Chains of Ice, Howling Blast, Icy Touch and Obliterate generate 10 additional runic power. More runic power, more frost strikes, more runes, more damage. Oh yes. So we want Chill of the Grave. Killing Machine. The biggest burden to a Frost Death Knight is our Killing Machine, but it's not a burden, should I say. It's a brilliant talent, but it causes this problem. Let's read it. Your auto attacks, which are now attacking 20% faster as well because of all our talents and stuff, and now got a chance to cause our next Obliterate or Frost Strike a guaranteed critical strike. That sounds amazing. But what we need to remember is Obliterate hits like a truck. An absolute truck. Massive hit. Frost Strike hits like a slightly smaller truck. It's pretty big. Slightly smaller than Obliterate. So what does that common sense say to you? Well, when Killing Machine procs, I want to Obliterate. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You want to be obliterating. But Killing Machine procs a hell of a lot. And the more gear you get and the more haste you get, it procs even more. So, what do? Do you wait? Let's put us in a situation where all our runes are on cooldown, they're all regenerating because we're a good DK and we're using all our resources. Killing Machine is procced. I can Frost Strike. Should I use it? Yes, you should. Unless you have about 1 second remaining, and I'm talking no more than a second, on that rune refreshing that's going to give you the Obliterate, you should Frost Strike. And why is that? Because Killing Machine procs so bloody often that if you delay it for more than a second to wait for an Obliterate, it's probably going to proc again. And now you've wasted a proc. You've missed a crit. And what's better than having one big fatty Obliterate crit? Well, a Frost Strike crit and a big fatty Obliterate crit, obviously. So don't delay it too long, guys. And don't worry, because Killing Machine has the ability to, when you press an ability, alright, say Frost Strike, Killing Machine can proc and use itself at the same time. And it's really annoying because you might have a rune ready and you've just Frost Striked and Killing Machine appeared on your screen and then disappeared straight away. And there's nothing you can do about it. So if there's nothing you can do about it, guys, that's not you failing. It's happening to us all, okay? If it's you, obviously can see it. It's a problem. Don't worry about it. It happens all the time. What have we got next? Rhyme. This is a really good talent. It's going to give our Obliterate, only Obliterate, a 45% chance to cause your next Howling Blast to be free. Oh yeah. What we're going to talk about in our Glyphs is Howling Blast is actually going to keep our Frost Fever on our targets. Now 45% is a big chance, isn't it? It's 1 in every 2 pretty much. So, what's the rule with that? If you Obliterate and Rhyme procs, and you can Obliterate again, what should you do? Well, you should Howling Blast first and then Obliterate, because there's a good chance, nearly 50%, that Obliterate again is going to give you another Howling Blast. And what's better than one Howling Blast? 2 Howling Blasts and more runic power everywhere. Good times. So that's the only rule with that one, guys. Pillar of Frost, your main DPS cooldown, 20% strength buff. We said strength is king, mainly because of this talent again. 1 frost rune to cost. It's on a 1 minute cooldown, as is your blood tap. If you don't know what blood tap does, it gives you a free rune when it runs out. So we can use Pillar of Frost every single cooldown without a second wasted. Brilliant. Every time a Pillar of Frost, I suggest you then blood tap it straight back again. Remember, blood tap reactivates a death rune, which is one of these two. So if you've Pillar of Frosted and it costs a frost rune, it's used this rune. You want to obliterate until it uses one of these runes, then blood tap it back. Cause you may be a 2-second delay. Nothing to worry about there at all, okay? So that's the rule with that. Unless Pillar of Frost is you've got no runes, but you've got a load of runic power, you're about to do a big frost strike spam, then blood tap it first, then Pillar of Frost with your free rune, then start your frost strikes, okay? What you want to make sure before you Pillar of Frost is that you've got something to spend it on. There's no point in firing up a 20 strength bonus, 20% strength buff, and you've got no runes and no runic power to use it on. Absolute waste of time. So you want to make sure, little trick for you, what I try to do is, because as we said before, our frost strike procs runes. So if I've run out of runes, I can see Pillar of Frost is almost ready to come off cooldown. As you can see, I put it here in this big box so I can see it regularly. I fire off all my frost strikes to get as many runes ready, because as we said before, Obliterate hits harder than frost strike. So when my Pillar of Frost is up off cooldown, I've got at least 3 big fat Obliterates to fire off. They're all going to generate runic power, and then I can follow it up with more frost strikes. You see what I'm saying? I'm setting up for this little burst. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for a nice fatty burst to come out. Improved Icy Talons. Nice attack speed buff for your whole raid. And also a personal buff to yourself. A 10% buff to the raid and gives you an extra 5%. So it's not a case of you say, well, I've got an enhancement shaman in the raid. I don't need to take that. It's a 5% buff to yourself anyway. So you're going to take it. This is similar with Brittle Bones, which is your 4% physical damage taken debuff on all the raid. Combat rogues do the same. We do it better, just saying, you know, because our Howling Blast affects everything, not just some crappy melee hit on 1 or 2 targets from a combat rogue, whatever. We can do it to everything at once. Snigger. It's also a strength buff to ourselves by 4%. A personal advantage. So even if you've got a combat rogue or any other debuffer in there that's doing the same thing, doesn't matter. You're still going to take it because it's a 4% strength buff. Improved Frost Presence. We fire in a Holy Presence, as we said before, but we maintain with this 4% runic power generation from Frost Presence by being unholy. So we want more runic power, more Frost Strikes, dead easy. Hungering Cold. It's a CC. We have to take it to get to Howling Blast, as you can see our lovely arrow there. So we're not going to QQ. It's an obvious point to take. We're not going to use it an awful lot. Very, 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 very rarely in PvE. But still, we're going to take it anyway. We skip Chillblains. Now, Chillblains is one of the things, especially if you're in a 10-man guild, that the people are going to want you to take. If you do need to take that, put your 2 points in. It slows all the mobs by your Howling Blast. Makes us very good at kiting lots of groups. Your Howling Blast is obviously regenerated very quickly. You can fire at least 4 off to start with. And Chillblains is going to slow them by 50% with 2 points in there. So, if you are looking for a 10-man and you need to take that talent, put your 2 points in there and I'll tell you where to take them off in a second. Threat of Thessarian. This is for dual wield. You see the 2 tier here, that's your 2-handed one. When wielding a 2-handed weapon, you get more damage. This is our dual wield, okay? It means that you're attacking with both weapons at once, like I was saying with the Mutilate Rogue. So we want all our abilities to hit with 2 weapons. Dead easy. Drop your 3 points in there. That's going to bring you down to your Howling Blast. Our big AoE, 1 Frost Rune to smash everything in the area around the mob that we're targeting with damage. Our big AoE spell, Howling Blast. As we said, we're going to glyph it so it gives us our Frost Fever debuff. So we can take Icy Touch off our bars and stick Howling Blast there in its place. So there's your 31 in Frost. What else are we going to pick up? Go to Blood quickly. Bladed Armor, increase your attack power by 6 for every 180 armor. It's just extra damage. More attack power is more damage, so we're going to take that. I'll talk about Butchery in a second. Then moving over to Unholy. Epidemic. Some people say 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3 is best for this. Personally, I prefer 3 out of 3. Why? Because runes are so random with whether or not a Frost Strike is going to proc them, whether or not you've had a Rime proc, so on and so on, that I want to have as long as possible to play and choose when I use my runes. We have to keep our diseases on, as we said before. But that involves a Plague Strike, because nothing refreshes our Blood Plague. Howling Blast, our free ones from Rime, So these two work together. We'll refresh our Frost Fever. So this talent really only affects our Blood Plague. So Outbreak has a 1 minute cooldown, which puts our diseases on. So I want as long as possible between having to spend a global cooldown either outbreaking or wasting a hit on Plague Strike, which does very little. So I prefer to have the extra time. Virulence increases damage done by diseases by 30%. I have already said diseases do very, very little damage for Frost Deathknights. Very, very little. But in the same respect, we've already said we have to have diseases on every target we're DPSing all the time to get the benefit to our Obliterate and our Frost Strike. So if those diseases are going to be on anyway, we might as well get an extra 30% damage. On the other hand as well, when we're AoEing, our Frost Fever is going to be doing a lot of damage to a lot of targets. So let's boost that by 30%. Dead easy. So you need two, just going back to this, you need 2 extra points for Chillblains. I take 1 out of Epidemic and I will play with the slightly less. If you have 1 out of Epidemic, then your Blood Plague will run out at exactly 30 seconds after you've put on your Outbreak. So you'll have to do one. You still have to do 1 Plague Strike every 30 seconds, but it has an increased chance of diseases falling off. We're going to take that pain in order to do our more important role in the fight, which is the kiting role, which is why you're taking your Chillblains. Take 1 out of there and drop 1 out of Virulence as well for me. Okay? That's where I'd take them out. Diseases do very little damage as it is, and if you're kiting, it's more than likely those ads aren't going to be killed anyway, so if you're trying to cheese damage, then that's just your personal benefit, but for me, I prefer to drop it out of there. Diseases are very low damage as it is. Take 1 out of each, and that's your kiting spec for me. Butchery generates 1 runic power every 5 seconds while in combat, although it's obviously a very trivial amount of runic power, 1 every 5 seconds. I'm not going to moan about it at all. It's free runic power. I'm happy with that. We've got this extra point anyway. Might as well stick it into there and get some more runic. Very, very often you'll run into occasions where you're out of runes, and if you had 1 more runic power, you could probably Frost Strike. So that can be the difference between Frost Striking and not. And I'm happy with that. It's all about maintaining your rotation, not wasting killing machine procs, that kind of thing. So I take that talent. It's just free runic power. I think it's okay. Our Glyphs, this is one main one we talk about. Our Howling Blast. Your Howling Blast ability now infects your target with Frost Fever, so no longer do we need to Icy Touch or ever worry about Frost Fever again. Our Rime procs, which procs a lot, 45% every Obliterate, is going to proc our Howling Blast for us and refresh it for us. Dead easy. So all we need to worry about for diseases is Plague Strike. That's it. Glyph of Obliterate, 20% damage buff to our main ability. And Frost Strike makes it cheaper. Cheaper it is. More Frost Strikes. Dead easy for your primes. Howling Blast, Obliterate, and Frost Strike. If you go in a fight, and there isn't any in-game where I would really recommend this at the moment, there just isn't. I've done all the encounters, as I've said. You can put Glyph of Icy Touch in if you really want to cheese some damage. Let's say you've got to kite on Maloriak,